Chapter 2 of Man and Nature on the Broads by Arthur Henry Patterson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. February in Broadland. At dusk steers homeward with a plenteous freight. The crazy vessel groans beneath the weight. A tidy housewife waits his coming home, gets dry apparel and cleans up her room, and spreads a homely plenty o'er his board. From Life of a Fenman, 1771. The countryside has assumed a bleak and dreary aspect. The snows of January have given way before the drizzly rainfall. As our train rattles along through the barren fields which lie on either side our route, and spread away to the distant woodland, or are lost in the horizon, we cannot fail to notice the barrenness which characterises the environs of Broadland in the month of February Fildike. Here and there, Farmer Giles or his neighbours have fastened an unwilling team to the plough, for it is time the peas and beans were sown. The horses are somewhat restive. Their spell of idleness that has made them impatient of restraint is ended, and hard work lies before them. Contented Hodge has been dressing and repairing the hedges and lopping the willows and poplars. Their shorn limbs lie alongside the hawthorns. In one field a number of graceful white birds are eagerly following the plough. We have time just sufficient to identify them as the train shoots into and through a belt of fir trees, and the little Broadland station looms into view. They are sea birds, and none other than the black-headed gulls, Larus ridibundus, whose nests will be found in the early summer upon the swampy ronds that margin some of the Broads. Food has been scarce of late, and a meal of fat red earthworms becomes a feast as well as a luxury. We have travelled in pleasant company. A brace of well-clad fishermen, armed with the insignia of their craft, are bent on trying the case of angler versus Esox lucius, for the freshwater shark of our reedy lagoons has yielded to the cravings of hunger, and come out from his lair in the reed bed in search of small fry for breakfast. As we trudge along by the naked hedgerows, there is no lack of pleasant chat. The Broadland angler is more than half a naturalist, and there is much that calls for remark when more than one pair of eyes are keenly alert to the sights and sounds which continuously present themselves, even at so gloomy a season. Greenfinches in small flocks fly hurriedly overhead, whistling noisy protests against meddlesome husbandmen whose radish beds they have been too busily gleaning in. A couple of red-faced goldfinches are tamely pecking at an almost seedless thistle tuft. We pass them at very close quarters. Who but the heartless bird-catcher could begrudge them their freedom? He is as sorry as we are at their perceptible decrease in the country, but his is a fox's grief. "We'll bid you good day for the present," is the parting salute of one of our impatient friends. "Yow can mardle with the cadders and ring doors, 'bor, but we hain't got no time to dawdle, so we'll jest gie you the seal of the day and be a movin'," jibes in angler number 2, with a merry laugh as he good-temperedly wraps up his impatience in a bit of broad Norfolk lingo. Left to ourselves, we saunter on yet more leisurely, so many interesting tit-bits are turning up on every side. Now we peer through the hedge at some starlings foraging upon a manure-strewn field. What can it be that so absorbs their attentions? We clamber over the rickety gate to satisfy our curiosity, scattering the much surprised squabblers, who make for the nearest trees to watch our strange procedure and await our departure. We find quite a host of brandlings, which, unsavoury though they be, have gladly been found by the speckled stairs. The earthworms have become cognisant of the slight change in the atmosphere, and are working upwards. The moles have followed them, and are making the pathside hillocky with their landmarks. Some remnants of snow, soiled and melting, lie piled beneath the hedgerow, where the rough winds but recently drifted it. A pale yellow primrose has ventured to open its delicate petals, and close beside it the young leaves of the coltsfoot are peering above the withered grass bents that the rains and snows of winter have levelled. The hazel on our right is already pushing its catkins out from their winter hiding places. The loud retort of a gun in an adjacent market garden startles us, as it does a number of little birds that dash over the hedge in precipitate flight. One of them, vainly striving to keep up with the others, staggers in its flight and falls to the earth, which it reddens with its life's blood. A slight flutter and the poor birdie is dead. It is a bullfinch. Peering through the hawthorns, we find the gardener picking up 2 or 3 other victims, and apparently well satisfied with the accuracy of his aim. Bloodulf, as the bird is named in Norfolk, is no favourite visitant to the orchard just now, for the plum and cherry and even the gooseberry buds are set upon by those hard destructive mandibles. They say the good he does in other seasons is counterbalanced by the mischief he commits in winter, a statement that is very much open to question. Watch that grey bird with black wings and tail and a dash of sable hue beneath the eyes. But he is watching us, and takes to wing, disappearing in the orchard. It is a great grey shrike or butcher bird. Lanius excubiter, the sentinel butcher, as his Latin cognomen denotes, is expressive of his habits and his occupation. Here is a poor little wren he has impaled upon a thorn. We have disturbed him at his repast. Hearken to the tapping of the woodpecker, but we may not loiter to discover him. The rooks cawing noisily overhead are evidently commencing nesting operations. What an uproar, to be sure! The redwings and fieldfares, busy still among the hawthorns, and their cousins the blackbirds and thrushes amongst the roots below, are passed unheeded by, as are the missel thrushes already nest building in the topmost branches of an old pear tree. We loiter just a moment when passing a keeper's lodge, with its interesting surroundings. Yon outhouse door is his museum. On it are nailed many a real and supposed foe and depredator, from the marauding tabby cat to the harmless kestrel, at whose hands, or rather claws and mandibles, his precious pheasants may or may not have suffered. Surely those barn owls could never have conceived a thought of molestation. The rats on which, with field mice, they almost exclusively preyed, have done more to merit vengeance than all the victims hung beside the really useful night birds. The marsh harrier, Circus aeruginosus, preferring vermin to all else, may have cast longing eyes upon the warren when hard pinched, But the keeper imagined him dangerous to his interests, and on the supposition condemned and executed him. Hither comes the gamekeeper, a rather uncompromising looking fellow, with a ferret in each hand and a brace of vicious curs at his heels. The rats have exhausted his patience. They have been woefully on the increase, and small wonder, when their natural enemies have been so ruthlessly and stupidly destroyed. Here we are at length at the broad margin. Yonder are our angler friends, busy, it is evident, our glasses revealing them tackling a reluctant pike. Close at hand are several ducks and swans probing the soft mud of the shallow ' deek ' or boat sluice that is connected with the Broad. They are seeking mollusca and edible roots. The fenman has thrown in some maize, of which they leisurely partake. How broken and colourless the sedges and stubble of other Broad plants, and how bare are the straw-coloured reed stems of foliage. What of it remains is sere and drooping. We hear the calling of the moorhens, and at the farthest extremity of the reed patch a dusky coot is cautiously paddling out into the open. Some wood pigeons fly overhead. A flight of lapwings is discerned, and a small flock or two of wildfowl are making large circles high in the air. Hard by lies an old wherry. It has been heeled over by the boat builder to get at some faulty timbers. Beyond this characteristic craft of Broadland waters is an old drainage mill, close by which, nestling among some willows, is the fenman's cottage, whither we are wending our footsteps. A devious pathway, flanked on either side by a narrow lane of water, leads us to it. Let us step in, for we are not strangers here. The good old lady, whose deafness is to blame for not answering to our knock, bids us a cheery welcome. She has just spread the table against the old man's home coming. ' Jim Trett's out hinder reed cuttin', ' says his loving spouse, ' but he'll soon come in, 'bor. Sit ye down, for he's pretty regular to his males, 'bor, I can tell ye.' Whilst the good woman is finishing her preparations for the noonday meal, we have a look round, taking stock of the room and its contents. The whitewashed walls are hung with several common prints of scriptural or sporting subjects. A tiny looking glass overtops the mantel in company with a faded sampler worked by the lady of the household when at school. A couple of cheerful linnets hang on either side of the window in the tiniest of cages, and beneath them are several geraniums struggling hard to brave the winter, and so far they have been successful. An aged cat upon the elbow of the old man's chair sits blinking at the fluttering birdies, thinking no doubt of times gone by when she was wont to hunt their fellows. A few oddments in the shape of wearing apparel, lines, a bird net, and an ancient flintlock gun, long past service, complete the furniture in suspension, with the exception of a quaint old timepiece that swings its bright brazen pendulum as methodically and untiringly as it did when the good old folks were novices at housekeeping 50 years ago. 3 or 4 birch chairs, a side table overcrowded with household treasures, a dilapidated bureau that contains the rest, with a study table creaking beneath the plentiful repast, comprise the furniture of below stairs. Everything, even the very brick floor, is as clean as scouring soap and elbow grease can make it. The old lady's snow white cap encircles a face upon which simplicity and good nature are finely blended amid the wrinkles of advancing years. We have no time for further survey ere a heavy footstep announces the arrival of Jem, the fenman, who enters with scant ceremony. His boat lies moored close by the house, stacked with freshly cut reeds. We are soon seated around the table, quite at home, and on the best of terms. What pleasant gossip makes the meal a luxury? Of itself it is one, for our viands are not unsavoury or badly brought to table. Who could say nay to a leg of plump wild rabbit snared in the little garden patch outside, or to tender lapwing shot but the day before upon the marshes? Did we like a piece of boiled pike and potatoes, or a plate of potted eels? Did we not? And didn't we just enjoy a nice little cut from the wild goose's breast, and that wind up with the richest of home-made bread with a bit of cheese, such as you seldom find better out of the county? Rather. But that goose, it was a pink-footed fellow, answer brachyrhynchus, so we told our host, who, not having shot the like before, so he said, had saved the feat for identification. He was gormed like Ham Peggotty, if he could "spake them hard words at all," and good eating the goose was too, and the tea wasn't bad which washed down this strange Broadland repast. As for Jim, a huge dumpling, packed full of starlings, formed the principal item on his bill of fare, and the old fellow, with his tousled hair, his unkempt beard and ruddy complexion, appeared to thrive on his homely fare and his outdoor life in the strong pure air of East Anglia. And how does the fenman pass his time through each succeeding season? Let Jim tell us, for he has settled to his after-meal pipe, and has waxed chatty and communicative as the smoke curls upward. Well, yow see it's like this, 'bor. There's allus suffin' to do, be the days long or short, and be they hot or cold. Start from to day if yow like. I'm sloggin' hard in among the reeds jest now, and have been off and on since Christmas, when the wather ha' let me. What do they do with the reeds? Why, use 'em for thatchin' mostly. Years ago, afore laths was riv and sold for plasterin', we used to make a better figure on 'em than we do to day. Law! Times ain't noways like as they was long years ago. Everything has changed, and for the wuss, at least for us fenmen. We ain't fenmen now, but simply labourers. Time was when we could get our livin', and that's 50 year ago and more, on and out of the Broad alone. There was allus suffin' in the fishin' or shootin' line to do. Nowadays it's reed cuttin' in winter, mixin' it off with a little eel pickin' or eel spearin' when the wather's open. Then comes ditchin' and hedgin'. In June there's hazel or hay harvest, for which we get pay accordin' to day or acre or loads, jist as we agree for. Then there's gladdon cuttin' for litter. That's the rough marshy stuff mixed with young sedges, reeds, and so on. Later on comes harvest. Get that over, and we go arter the eels agin, among which we sometimes do pretty good business, babbin' for 'em, catchin' 'em in bigger numbers as the time goes on in eel sets when they begin to run, or make for the sea. Now and agin a job's to be had a rowin' gents out a pikin', or helpin' 'em in the warmer wather among the roach and bream. Takin' all these things into consideration, with catchin' moles and havin' an eye to the cattle on the marshes and another on the old pump mills, time gets filled in all year round. There's a pig in the sty to help with the rent, eggs from the chickens ain't all loss, and gatherin' mushrooms pays for bacca. This ain't bad bacca yow got here, sir, nohow. Times is altered, I was tellin' yow. Why, when I wor a boy and the Broads were freer than they are to day, and there warn't no close seasons for birds, and there was birds then, let me tell yer. I ha' known my father to kill 20 mallard and duck in a mornin'. There was ruffs and reeves as used to nest hereabouts. These we snared, and others had a riddy market for 'em. Plovers' eggs could be gathered by the peck. That's all done with. A hatful takes a mornin' now to git. Where are the birds gone? Why, there ain't the birds there was. Do it stand to reason there ken be, when in 1821 my dad took 160 dozen eggs in one season, and that was only a sample of plenty more. These eggs, let me tell yow, was reeves, snipes, peewits, redlegs redshanks, and a fair dose of coots and moorhens mixed in among 'em. In course they killed the goose as lays the golden eggs, so to spake, but there ain't accommodation for the birds, 'bor, now if they'd come, for everywhere's all drained and cultiwated. In winter my father could pretty well keep us with the fowl he knocked over with that old flintlock, and the wegetables as he'd grown in the garden patch. I get a few birds as yow'll see, but it's a sort of favour as I'm allowed to shoot, for that sort of thing's done for pretty well among us fen folk. There's licences to git, and the rich 'uns ha' got it all their own way, and on the Broads the rights of owners, so called, are more enforced. Dinner over, we make for the Broad, taking a peep at the outhouse on our way, wherein are stored his various scythes, his reed hooks, traps, and other implements. Herein the fowls all roost at night, and drop in at leisure in the daytime, as occasion for laying prompts them. The pig hard by gives a squeal of recognition, and the ferrets in the corner rattle at the wires for a rat for dinner. We shove off from the little staith, he to resume his business among the reeds, our purpose being a row round upon the silent waters. We leave him pushing his old punt into the crackling mass, his hands encased in dannocks leather gloves, sickle in one and reed hook in the other. With this latter instrument he brings to book the straggling stems. We have a peep into the pike fishers' boat. They have secured some half a dozen fish, one huge fellow weighing at least a stone. Gulls are winging to and fro over the dark waters, picking up here and there some defunct fish. Two are quarrelling over a dead eel that the recent frosts have killed. A Sclavonian grebe is dipping here and there in the now rippling waters, for the winds are stirring and sending up the promise of more rain. A flock of widgeon wheel round and round overhead, and finally descend, dashing themselves upon the surface with the impetuosity peculiar to the race. But time is going, and great raindrops are making concentric circles upon the Broad. We row for the fenman's cottage, arriving at the mooring stage simultaneously with the good man himself. A flock of lapwings are beating up against the wind within gunshot. The old man snatches up his muzzle loader, which lies in the boat, and brings down a trio of the unfortunate plovers. After another cup of tea and another interesting chat, we take our leave, hoping to revisit Broadland in the blustering month of March. CHAPTER III.